Bullies started mocking the new girl and tried to slap her cheeks. Big mistake. She got furious and beat them up. Lena Chen kept her head down as she navigated the crowded hallways of Pinewood Academy. At 16, she was the new girl again. This was her third school in 4 years thanks to her mother's diplomatic career. Each move meant starting over, learning new faces, new rules, new social hierarchies. At 5'3", with a slight frame, straight black hair that never seemed to stay in place, and round glasses that hid her dark eyes, Lena didn't exactly stand out in a crowd. That was usually how she preferred it. What no one at Pinewood knew, what no one at any of her schools ever knew at first, was that Lena had been training in Taekwondo since she was 7 years old. Her mother, a former Special Forces operative, had insisted she learn to defend herself. 9 years of intensive training had transformed her into a formidable fighter with lightning-fast reflexes and a second-degree black belt. She could take down opponents twice her size without breaking a sweat, but Lena never advertised this fact. Her parents had always taught her that fighting was only for self-defense, never for showing off. True strength is knowing when not to fight, her mother would say. Besides, being the perpetual new kid meant she was always trying to blend in, not stand out. Pinewood Academy was a modern glass and steel building in the heart of the city with nearly 2,000 students divided into clear social strata. Lena had been there for exactly 2 weeks, and she'd already mapped out the danger zones, the courtyard behind the science building, the vending machine area in the basement, and the north corridor where the self-proclaimed rulers of the school held court. Those rulers were led by Marcus Reyes, a senior with perfectly styled blonde hair, designer clothes, and a perpetual smirk that teachers somehow never seemed to notice. His main sidekicks were Jared Wilson, a wrestler with more muscle than sense, and Elliot Chen, no relation to Lena, a slim boy with calculating eyes who seemed to take genuine pleasure in others' discomfort. They moved through the school like they owned it, and in many ways they did. Lena had heard whispers about them before she'd even opened her locker on the first day. Stay away from Marcus and his crew, a friendly girl named Zoe had warned her. They pick someone new every semester. Last year they drove a sophomore to transfer schools. For the first 2 weeks, Lena had successfully avoided their attention. She took alternate routes between classes, ate lunch in the courtyard, and made herself as forgettable as possible. But invisibility, she was learning, had a limited shelf life. It began, as these things often do, with something small. Lena was hurrying to physics class, arms full of books, when she rounded a corner and nearly collided with Jared. "Watch it," he snapped, looking her up and down with narrowed eyes. "Sorry," Lena mumbled, sidestepping him and continuing on her way. "Hey," he called after her. "You're new, right? What's your name?" Lena hesitated, then responded without turning around. "Lena, Lena," he repeated, drawing out the syllables mockingly. "Better watch where you're going next time, Lena." She could feel his eyes on her back as she walked away, and something in her stomach tightened. She recognized the evaluating look in his eyes. She'd seen it before at other schools. The look of a predator sizing up potential prey. The next day, her books were knocked out of her hands as she stood at her locker. She looked up to see Elliot walking away, laughing with a group of his friends. "Oops," he called over his shoulder. "Butterfingers?" A few days later, it was Marcus himself sliding into the seat next to her in the courtyard when she'd thought it was safe to eat there instead of hiding away. "So you're the new charity case," he said conversationally, as if they were old friends. Lena, nobody from nowhere. Lena kept her eyes on her food, just trying to eat lunch. "Aren't we all?" Marcus grinned at his own non-joke. "The thing is, new girl, there's a certain way things work around here, and rule number 1 is knowing your place." He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "And your place isn't here with the normal people. Your place is, well, I'm not sure yet, but we'll figure it out for you." Lena felt her muscles tense, her body instinctively preparing for a threat. She consciously relaxed, focusing on her breathing the way her master had taught her. "This isn't the dojang. This isn't a match. You can't fight here. Thanks for the welcome," she said flatly, gathering her things. "But I can find my own place." Marcus's hand shot out, gripping her wrist, not hard enough to hurt, but firmly enough to make a point. "That's not how this works." For a split second, Lena calculated exactly how she could break that grip, how easily she could flip Marcus over the table, how quickly she could put him in a hold that would have him gasping for air. But instead, she did what was expected of the shy new girl. She pulled her arm away and hurried out of the courtyard, the sound of laughter following her. The incidents escalated from there. Her books were knocked to the floor regularly. Her locker was jammed shut with gum. Whispers followed. Her in the hallways, rumors about why she had transferred, Crude jokes about her appearance, her clothes, her quiet demeanor. In class, anonymous paper balls would hit the back of her head when the teacher wasn't looking. It was nothing Lena hadn't experienced before, and nothing she couldn't handle. She kept to herself, did her work, and focused on getting through each day. At night, she would train in the spare bedroom they'd converted to a small home gym, working through her frustrations on the punching bag, reminding herself why she didn't fight back. It's never worth it. It only makes things worse. It's what they want, a reaction. But Marcus and his crew seemed to take her non-reaction as a further challenge. They were used to getting a response. Tears, anger, pleading. Lena's calm detachment clearly irritated them, made them push harder. 3 weeks into the semester, Lena found herself cornered in the north corridor after school. She'd stayed late to work on a project in the computer lab, and the halls were mostly empty. She saw them coming, Marcus leading, with Jared and Elliot flanking him like loyal lieutenants, but there was nowhere to go. "Well, look who it is," Marcus said, his voice echoing in the empty corridor. "Lena, nobody, all alone." Lena gripped the strap of her backpack tighter. "I need to get home. Do you hear that, guys?" Marcus looked at his friends. "She needs to get home, probably has to go cry to her mommy about how mean everyone is at her new school. I've seen her in gym class," Jared added. "She always changes. In the bathroom stall. Probably embarrassed about her body." He made a face. "Not that there's much to see." Lena felt her cheeks flush. It was true that she changed privately, not out of embarrassment, but because she didn't want anyone to see the defined muscles that would give away her training. "Just let me pass," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Or what?" Elliot stepped closer. "What are you going to do about it?" "Nothing," Lena thought. "I'm going to do nothing because that's what I always do." That was the rule. It had been the rule at her last school and the one before that. "Keep your head down, don't make waves, we'll be moving again soon enough." Except her mother had promised her they were staying this time, at least until she graduated. This wasn't a temporary situation she could wait out. This was her life now. "I just want to go home," she repeated, hating how small her voice sounded. Marcus moved in front of her, blocking her path completely. "You know what your problem is, Lena. You think you're better than us. Walking around all quiet like you're so superior, you can't even bother to react." "I don't think that at all," Lena said. "Liar," Elliot hissed. "Everyone talks about how you look at people like they're beneath you. This wasn't true." Lena made a point of not making eye contact with anyone, but she knew it didn't matter. They'd already decided who she was and what she deserved. "Move," she said with slightly more force this time. "Make me," Marcus challenged, taking another step toward her. And then Jared was behind her, too close, and she felt his hands slide down her back toward her rear. "Maybe what she needs is a little attention," he said with a laugh in his voice. "Show her how we welcome the new girls here." Lena felt a calm clarity wash over her. Time seemed to slow down as she felt Jared's hand moving toward her backside. Without thinking, pure instinct and training taking over, she spun around, catching his wrist in a grip that made him gasp in surprise. In one fluid motion, she twisted his arm behind his back, using his own momentum to slam him face first into the wall. "What the—" Marcus began, but he didn't finish the sentence because Lena had already released Jared, who slumped to the floor in shock and turned her attention to the ringleader. She moved with a speed that seemed impossible for someone her size, sweeping Marcus's legs out from under him with a practiced kick. He landed hard on his back, the air rushing from his lungs in a pained wheeze. Elliot, seeing his friends taken down in seconds, rushed at Lena with a wild, angry yell. She sidestepped easily, using his own momentum against him, and flipped him. Over her hip, he landed next to Marcus with a thud that echoed through the corridor. The entire confrontation had lasted less than 10 seconds. Lena stood in the center of the fallen bullies, her breathing even, her stance balanced and ready. 9 years of training had made these movements as natural to her as walking. "Don't ever touch me again," she said, her voice low and controlled. "Don't speak to me, don't look at me, leave me alone." Jared was the first to recover, pushing himself up from the floor, his face red with a mixture of pain, shock, and humiliation. "You're crazy," he gasped. "No," Lena corrected, adjusting her glasses calmly. "I'm trained. There's a difference." She stepped over Marcus, who was still trying to catch his breath, and headed down the corridor. Only when she was outside the building, the cool afternoon air hitting her face, did she allow herself to feel the weight of what had just happened. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the rush of adrenaline and the release of weeks of pent-up tension. "Mom is going to kill me," she thought, but deep down she knew her mother would understand. This wasn't about showing off or seeking a fight. This was genuine self-defense. What Lena didn't realize was that they hadn't been alone in that corridor. Zoe, the girl who had first warned her about Marcus and his crew, had been coming around the corner and had witnessed the entire confrontation. By the next morning, the story had spread throughout Pinewood Academy like wildfire, growing more elaborate. With each retelling, Lena arrived at school to find people staring at her, conversations stopping when she walked by. But it was different from before. There was no mockery in these stares, no cruel amusement. Instead, she saw something new: respect, awe, and more than a little fear. Is it true? Zoe cornered her before first period. Did you really put all 3 of them on the ground? Lena felt her stomach drop. I don't want to talk about it. They're saying you're like some kind of ninja, another girl chimed in, that you flipped Jared over your head. That's not exactly. Marcus is telling everyone he let you win. A boy Lena had never spoken to added, but Elliot's got a bruise, the size of a softball on his hip, and Jared can barely turn his head. Lena closed her eyes briefly. This was exactly what she hadn't wanted. Attention, rumors becoming the center of gossip, but there was no undoing what had happened. She made it through the morning in a haze of whispers and stares. By lunchtime, she'd heard at least 5 different versions of the fight, each more exaggerated than the last. According to some, she had knocked all 3 boys unconscious. Others claimed she had martial arts weapons hidden in her backpack. One particularly creative freshman was telling anyone who would listen that Lena was in a secret government training program. But the most surprising part was that Marcus, Jared, and Elliot were nowhere to be seen. They weren't in the cafeteria at their usual table, weren't patrolling the hallways between classes. It was as if they had vanished. Lena was sitting alone at lunch, picking at her food and trying to ignore the stares, when she felt someone slide onto the bench across from her. She looked up to find Marcus sitting there, but not with his usual swagger. His shoulders were hunched, his eyes downcast. A bruise was forming at the base of his throat, where he'd hit the floor. What do you want? Lena asked, immediately on guard. Marcus glanced around, clearly uncomfortable with the dozens of eyes watching them. I just wanted to say, what happened yesterday shouldn't have happened, Lena finished for him. And it won't happen again if you and your friends leave me alone. Marcus nodded slowly. That's fair. He paused, then added in a lower voice, Where did you learn to fight like that? Despite herself, Lena felt a small smile tug at her lips. My mom started teaching me when I was 7. I've got a black belt in Taekwondo and I've been doing competition sparring since I was 10. Marcus's eyes widened. Seriously? That's actually pretty cool. An announcement came over the PA system then. Lena Chen, please report to the principal's office. Lena Chen to the principal's office. Lena sighed. She'd been expecting this. Guess someone told. It wasn't me, Marcus said quickly. And it wasn't Jared or Elliot either. We didn't tell anyone. Lena looked at him searchingly, trying to detect a lie, but he seemed genuine. Thanks, I guess. As she walked to the principal's office, Lena steeled herself for the worst. Fighting on school grounds was an automatic suspension at most schools, possibly even expulsion. Her parents would be called. There would be discussions about her anger management and appropriate conflict resolution. She'd been through it before, at her first school, when she'd finally snapped after months of bullying. The irony was that the bullies had received no punishment beyond a stern talking to. Principal Rivera was a stern-looking woman with salt and pepper hair and piercing green eyes. She gestured for Lena to take a seat across from her desk. Miss Chen, she began, I've heard some concerning reports about an altercation yesterday afternoon. Lena took a deep breath. Yes, ma'am. Would you care to explain what happened? Lena told her the truth, not embellishing or making excuses. She explained how Marcus, Jared, and Elliot had been harassing her for weeks. She described being cornered in the corridor and how Jared had tried to grope her. She confessed to using her martial arts training to defend herself. I know fighting isn't allowed, she concluded, and I'm prepared to accept whatever punishment you think is appropriate. But I want to be clear that I didn't start this, and I only did what I felt was necessary to protect myself. Principal Rivera had listened without interruption, her expression revealing nothing. Now she leaned forward, hands clasped on her desk. Miss Chen, are you aware that we have security cameras in all corridors? Lena's heart sank. No, ma'am. Well, we do, and I've reviewed the footage from yesterday afternoon quite carefully. The principal picked up a remote and turned toward a small screen on her wall. Would you like to see it? Without waiting for a response, she pressed play. The grainy black and white footage clearly showed Lena being cornered, showed Jared's hand moving toward her backside, showed her efficient self-defense moves that put all 3 boys on the ground without causing serious injury. The entire incident just as Lena had described it, was there on film. Principal Rivera paused the video. Sexual assault is a serious offense at this school, Miss Chen. So is physical intimidation and bullying. All 3 of these young men have been suspended, and Mr. Wilson is facing additional disciplinary action for his inappropriate touching. Lena blinked in surprise. I'm not in trouble for defending yourself against unwanted sexual contact? Certainly not. Principal Rivera's expression softened slightly, though I would appreciate it if you would consider less dramatic methods of self-defense in the future, perhaps a shout for help or reporting harassment to a teacher before it escalates to this point. Yes, ma'am, Lena said, relief washing over her. That said, the principal continued, your martial arts skills are quite impressive. Our women's self-defense club could use someone with your expertise. Perhaps you'd consider volunteering as a peer instructor. It might be a more constructive outlet for your abilities. Lena felt a genuine smile spread across her face for the first time in weeks. I'd like that a lot, actually. When Lena returned to class, the whispers followed her, but they were different now. News of the suspended bullies had spread, along with rumors that Lena had been asked to teach self-defense, rather than being punished. By the end of the day, 3 different girls had approached her about learning that move she'd used on Jared. The real change came the following week, when Marcus, Jared, and Elliot returned from their suspensions. They were subdued, avoiding eye contact with Lena when they passed her in the hallways. Jared, in particular, seemed to give her a wide berth, staring at the floor whenever she was nearby. But on Wednesday, something unexpected happened. Lena was eating lunch with Zoe and a few other girls when Marcus approached their table. The conversation immediately died as everyone watched warily. Can I talk to you? He asked Lena. Alone? Lena hesitated, then nodded. I'll be right back, she told her new friends. She followed Marcus to a quiet corner of the cafeteria, maintaining a careful distance. What is it? Marcus rubbed the back of his neck, clearly uncomfortable. I just wanted to apologize, I guess, for everything. What we did was messed up. It wasn't the most eloquent apology, but the red flush creeping up Marcus's neck suggested it was sincere. Okay, Lena said simply. That's it? Okay. What do you want me to say? That I forgive you. I don't know if I do yet. Marcus nodded slowly. That's fair. I've been thinking a lot during suspension about why I do the things I do, and I'm not proud of it. You shouldn't be, Lena agreed. I know. He hesitated, then added, my dad, he's kind of a jerk. Always talking about being a man, being tough, not taking crap from anyone. And I guess I thought that's what I was doing, being tough. But really, I was just being him. Lena hadn't expected this level of self-reflection from Marcus. She studied his face, seeing vulnerability there that he usually kept carefully hidden. You don't have to be like him, she said finally. You can choose to be better. I don't know how, Marcus admitted. Lena considered him for a moment. Well, for starters, you could help me with something. I'm teaching a self-defense workshop for the girls' club next week. It might be helpful to have a volunteer for demonstrations. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. You want me to help? After everything? It's not about you, Lena clarified. It's about helping other girls learn to protect themselves. And maybe it'll help you understand how it feels to be on the receiving end of intimidation. A slow smile spread across Marcus's face. You're kind of terrifying. You know that? Good, Lena said with a small smile of her own. Remember that. The next time you think about bullying someone. The next few weeks brought changes to Pinewood Academy that no one could have predicted. The Girls' Self-Defense Club saw its membership triple, with Lena leading workshops twice a week. Marcus, true to his word, showed up as a volunteer, allowing himself to be flipped and pinned by Lena in demonstrations that left the girls cheering. More surprisingly, Elliot joined the drama club, where his talent for performance, previously used mainly for mocking others, found a more positive outlet. Jared, after a stern talking to from his wrestling coach about respecting women, became almost painfully polite, offering awkward apologies to other students he'd bullied in the past. Lena found herself with something she'd never had at any of her previous schools. Friends, real friends who knew her strengths and respected her for them, rather than fearing her or expecting her to hide them. Zoe and several others from the self-defense club became regular lunch companions, and soon Lena was being invited to study, groups and weekend hangouts. One afternoon, about a month after the corridor incident, Lena was walking home when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned to find Jared jogging to catch up with her. Hey, he said, slightly out of breath. Can I walk with you? I'm heading this way too. Lena nodded cautiously. They walked in silence for a few minutes before Jared spoke again. I never properly apologized to you, he said, for, trying to. He trailed off, his face reddening. Grope me, Lena replied. Yeah. Jared looked genuinely ashamed. It was wrong, really wrong, and I'm sorry. Why did you do it? Lena asked, genuinely curious. Jared was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, because I thought I could, because Marcus and Elliot were watching and I wanted to look cool, because that's what guys like us did to girls like you. Girls like me, girls who wouldn't fight back, Jared grimaced. Except you did fight back, and you should have. What I did, what I tried to do, it wasn't okay. Lena studied him as they walked. No, it wasn't, but I appreciate the apology. My little sister joined your self-defense class, Jared said after another silence. Mia, she's a freshman. Lena nodded. She remembered Mia, a quiet girl with the same brown hair as Jared, but none of his confidence. She's got good instincts. Yeah, well, I don't want her to ever feel like she can't protect herself. Jared kicked at a stone on the sidewalk. I don't want her to be afraid of guys like me. Then don't be that guy, Lena said simply. Jared nodded slowly. I'm working on it. When they reached the corner where their paths diverged, Jared offered his hand. No hard feelings? Lena hesitated, then shook it. Getting there. That evening, as Lena trained in the spare room with her mother, landing precise kicks against the heavy bag, she told her the whole story, how she'd been bullied, how she'd finally fought back, and how things had changed since then. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, she finished. I was afraid you'd be mad that I used my training that way. Her mother adjusted her stance slightly, the way she'd been doing since Lena was 7 years old. Lena, I never taught you to fight, so you could hurt others. I taught you so you would never have to be afraid. But you always said fighting should be the last resort, Lena reminded her. And was it? Her mother asked. Had you tried everything else? Lena thought about the weeks of avoidance, of keeping her head down, of enduring the harassment without complaint. Yes, she said finally. It was the last resort. Her mother nodded approvingly. Then you did exactly what you were trained to do. You protected yourself without causing unnecessary harm. She held up the focus mitts. Now show me that combination again. As the semester progressed, the legacy of what the students now called the Corridor Showdown continued to ripple through Pinewood Academy. The principal implemented a stricter anti-bullying policy. The girls' self-defense club became one of the most popular extracurricular activities. Marcus, who had never shown much academic interest before, discovered a talent for peer mediation. But for Lena, the most significant change was more personal. For the first time, she moved through school without hiding who she was. She still wore her glasses, still struggled with her unruly hair, still preferred books to parties, but she no longer hunched her shoulders or avoided eye contact. She stood tall, spoke clearly, and let her strength show in ways that went beyond physical demonstrations. On the last day before winter break, Lena found a small package in her locker. Inside was a keychain with a tiny pair of brass knuckles and a note that read, "To the girl who taught us all to stand up for ourselves. Thanks for the wake-up call, MJ&E." Lena smiled as she attached it to her backpack. She'd come to Pinewood Academy expecting to be invisible, to get through the next 2 years without making waves. Instead, she'd found her voice, her confidence, and a place where she truly belonged. As she headed to the cafeteria to meet her friends, Lena reflected on everything that had changed since that day in the corridor. The bullies had chosen the wrong girl to target, yes, but maybe in a strange way they'd chosen exactly the right one, the one who could show them, and everyone else, that strength wasn't about intimidation or fear, but about standing up for what was right, protecting yourself and others, and having the courage to be exactly who you are. Lena pushed open the cafeteria doors, her head held high. The shy new girl was gone.